We've waited long enough, but it looks like a new set of official figures tomorrow will suggest that the economic recovery is finally underway. The first 3 months of 2013 showed marginal growth of just 0.3%, but tomorrow's second quarter figures should be at least double that, giving the Chancellor apparent grounds for optimism. But such growth as there is does come largely from retail sales and a housing market boosted by the Treasury's controversial Help to Buy scheme. So is it the wrong kind of growth? Here's our economics editor, Faisal Islam.
It is a truth universally acknowledged that a Chancellor in possession of some good growth figures should want a friendly central banker to help consolidate the trend. The new Governor of the Bank of England was today at the Jane Austen Museum in Alton to reveal that the author will be featuring on a new £10 sterling note, answering criticism that Winston Churchill's replacement of Elizabeth Fry on the £5 note would have left our banknotes shorn of great British women, save for Her Majesty.
The unintended impression of the Churchill decision was the possibility, some people were concerned, these groups, many of whom are here today, were concerned about the possibility that there would be no women on banknotes. That's an entirely valid concern. We understood those concerns, we listened, and so we brought forward the decision.
So the Governor is busy redesigning Britain's banknotes. In the next fortnight there'll be a grand redesign of Britain's monetary policy too, to give some clarity on whether Britain's interest rates will be lower for longer. But there's been no redesign of Britain's property-fuelled economy, whereas we'll get some growth tomorrow with these new figures. The question is whether it's the wrong sort of growth. Here in Romford, the housing market is catching fire again, fuelled by the Chancellor's policies and government money.
Spacious.
Bogdan and his young family have just bought off-plan a new house like this using the government's Help to Buy scheme. Bogdan's a taxpayer in a good security job since he came from Romania a decade ago. The government has sent a cheque to the home builder for 1/5 of the value and will own 1/5 of Bogdan's house as collateral for the loan.
We've struggled for 3 years to buy. Obviously we couldn't raise the deposit as it was quite high. We had a few quotes and we had to raise like between 25,000 and 30,000. So the Help to Buy scheme helped us a lot, but we had to put only 12,000 down. The government helped us a lot.
Leading business groups such as the Institute of Directors have critiqued Help to Buy as the world gone mad, saying housing supply, not demand, is the issue. But house builders here say the scheme has got construction and the wider economy going again.
We estimate that for every house that we complete, there are 5 jobs that are generated in the wider economy. That's not all bricklayers, carpenters and electricians, but people that buy new homes tend to go off and spend money at garden centres. They buy furnishings, carpets, curtains, that kind of thing, and that's the wider economy that benefits from increased housing activity.
So where is the right sort of growth? At Heathrow Airport, a Bristol-based company called Ultra Global is pioneering a new type of transportation for the world. Futuristic pods, personalised transit, no drivers, guided by lasers. So Britain has finally returned to stronger growth, and laser-guided driverless cars could be quite some symbol of that if they can be exported. But it's not the actual cars that will be exported, it's the systems and the intellectual property behind it that the company is hoping to export to the fast-growing economies of the future. The news here could help sustain the better GDP number expected tomorrow. They are on the cusp of winning an important export order from India worth tens of millions of pounds after high-level government trade help, and there's interest in South America and Asia. But the big leg up would be a network of these pods in a major British city, and most of those are currently rather cash-strapped. You're selling this concept really basically in the fast-growing economies of the world. This is the future of this concept.
We see the future of this concept in cities and campuses around the world. Our greatest opportunity clearly is in markets where the economies are growing quickly and where there's a lot of urbanisation.
But it would be helpful if more local UK transport authorities, if the government, local governments in the UK also bought into it.
It would always be helpful if I could get a sale, and then getting a sale in the UK would be great. We need to make our case for that.
There aren't enough ultra-globals winning market share in fast-growing economies abroad, even given the effective devaluation of the pound. The fear is, with this type of growth engine rather fitful, the government has resorted to the traditional unsustainable staple of house prices. Back at Alton, Mark Carney told of how Jane will be the second Austin to feature on a banknote. Her brother Henry issued sterling notes before his bank went bankrupt. Britain's growth now will again be determined by bank conduct and lending. The business secretary today suggested the Bank of England Taliban were being too tough on capital. Are you feeling pride or prejudice about Britain, the performance of Britain's banking system and its lending?
We're looking for a little more sense and sensibility, thank you.
Thank you very much. And for that, the new governor will need all his powers of persuasion.
Well, we're joined now by the Chief Executive of Jupiter Fund Management, Edward Bonham Carter. I think he has about £29 billion under management. And to place the UK in its global context, Rain Newton-Smith, who is Head of Emerging Markets for Oxford Economics. Rain, could I begin with you and ask you whether this is the wrong kind of growth?
Well, I think the thing that I've been really encouraged by in the growth we've seen over the last couple of quarters and what I expect to see when we have the final figures for Q2 is that we've seen quite a pickup in net exports from the UK. So to the extent the UK is able to tap into some of the stronger growth that we see in emerging markets, even though emerging markets have taken a bit of a hit over the last couple of quarters, if the UK can tap into that strong growth over the medium term in those markets, I think we are looking at the right sort of growth.
But then, as Rain suggests, it's not an entirely uniform picture in the emerging markets. Brazil has taken a bit of a hit of late. And I'm wondering whether you think this is the right kind of growth.
Yeah, I think emerging markets, as Rain said, in my view, are slowing down, albeit from strong levels. On the other hand, the US is looking a bit better. So the UK should benefit from these two things. My question is the sustainability of the pickup in consumer spending. After all, consumers, 2/3 of the economy. We've heard from Faisal earlier in his piece about the housing market picking up. That's great. But that was some of the issues that got us into the problems we had prior to the credit crunch. So it's rather like, giving the reformed alcoholic another drink. I don't think that's necessarily the best sort of thing. I agree with Rain, if we can get exports up and investment up, like car industry as we've been hearing, that's good. But the consumer needs job growth and real wage growth to make this sustainable on a 2 to 3 year view.
Well, and neither of those are present.
No, you're starting to see a bit of job growth. You are starting to see it.
But this surely, to the amateur, I have to say, looks as if it's been stoked by quantitative easing and indeed the housing pickup which has been generated by the Treasury.
Well, I think there's no doubt that low interest rates have helped to support consumer spending over the last year or so. But it's that sort of supportive policy environment we want to see while the global economy is still recovering. But I mean, I agree. I think we have seen a pickup in employment, and that's one of the reasons why consumption has been quite strong. And I think it's not fair to necessarily pin the recovery we've seen on consumption in the UK entirely on growth in house prices. I think there's a lot more going on at the moment.
Then inevitably Q3 becomes the critical issue. Was it just stoked by quantitative easing, or is there a sustainable development further on?
My sense is that I think growth in the short term, by that I mean over the next 6 months to a year, is probably going to be better than expectations.
Well, why did everybody get it wrong then? Why has everybody been saying we were going to flatline?
It's Her Majesty's question about why didn't anyone spot the credit crunch. It's a fascinating topic. The world is an uncertain place. We deal in probabilities. It is uncertain. I think they're big medium-term issues. I think your point about quantitative easing is a very good one. This is a giant experiment. When are we going to return to normality, whatever normality is, and will we have a strong economy in 2 or 3 years' time after we withdraw the monetary medicine?
Well, be candid. Are you surprised by the second quarter growth?
I think... I mean, we'll yet to see what the final figure is. I don't want to preempt what we'll see tomorrow. But, I mean, we're expecting to see growth around 6.6 to 6.7 on the quarter.
Which nobody talked about 6 months ago.
Yeah, I mean, I think our forecast for the UK has been revised up, like many other forecasters. And, it's nice to be surprised on the upside. And it's no surprise when we're in this sort of state of the recovery.
Can I be so brutal as to ask whether austerity is working, therefore?
In part, I think it's too early to say, the famous defence. I mean, my personal view is I think we need infrastructure to be invested in, however that's financed. I think that's a big question, because the long-term competitiveness that Rain talked about, that's the key point. As an economy, are we going to be able to compete on the world stage? Those are long-term issues about education and infrastructure, and short-term interest rate moves are important, but really, those are the big issues.
This is the map that was drawn by George Osborne when he became Chancellor. He said that by 2015, you know, this will be beginning to come home. And nobody believed him, and I'm not sure he believed himself. I mean, certainly if we'd asked him last year, I think on a dark night he might have admitted he was wrong.
I mean, I don't think we've quite got the rosy picture he was hoping for. The household, if we look at the corporate sector, they're not really investing as much as we would like at this stage. And I think really the key development is we need to see private sector employment growth. We need to see UK companies investing in the UK and building trade opportunities with some of the fast-growing markets outside of the UK. And we haven't seen that firmly established yet.
You know, just before the heat wave, the weather forecasters were saying we were in for 10 years of brutally bad summers. And we were also told that we were going to have 10 years in which there would be effectively no real growth.
Exactly. Well,
so
I think
is this real growth?
I think in the short term, some of it is real. I've got doubts as to the sustainability on the medium-term view.
What are you doing with your 29 billion?
We're investing in growth companies across the world, and there's some excellent companies in the UK. Remember, it's important, just because an economy may be challenged, I think the UK, as I've said, is improving, the companies, in some cases, are doing very well, tapping into some of the emerging market growth that we've heard about. So the corporate sector, as Rain said, is actually in rude health. Their balance sheets are strong, the financing costs are low, and it's this elusive, when will confidence pick up? If I can indulge in a paradox, I'm getting more confidence that confidence will pick up. So I think we're in a better place in the corporate sector. So there's good investment opportunity out there.
And it's not going to fuel the balloon that we experienced before?
We hope not. I'm afraid my view of markets and cycles is, firstly, as you said, that they're unpredictable, but human nature is what it is. We get overly depressed at the bottom, and we get overly enthusiastic at the top.
Edward Bonham Carter and Rain Newton-Smith, thank you very much indeed. Katie.